Hi, welcome back to the Cuzzy Sound channel and part 23 in the series all about my Project 12 DIY modular analog synth. In this video we'll be looking at my Gatehouse gate sequencer module. Very simple design, super simple really. It is based around the 4017 decade counter chip, a bit like the Baby 8 sequencers that we've done before. The difference with this one is that the outputs basically go to a whole load of switches via diodes and simply produce an on-off gate signal at the output. There's also a couple of transistors in there that act as an AND gate, because one of the problems that you can sometimes get with the 4017 module is that at each step of the counter will remain high until the next step, so you don't get a clean cutoff at the end of each step. So if you AND the 4017 output with the clock input, you get a nice clean cutoff. Okay, that's a very short, simple part of the theory. There's not a lot to it really. So we'll have a look at the circuit diagram, and that looks like this. So there you've got the 4017 decade counter. We're using 8 steps of the counter, and then those go through switches and diodes to make sure the signal goes in the right direction and nothing gets fed back, and then you get a gate output. There's also a reset function on each of the switches, which again goes via diode back into the reset position on pin on the 4017. And then you can see the 2 transistors at the top right there that just act as the AND gate. So you only get an output when both the clock and the sequencer, the counter, are high. If either of them goes low, then the output goes low. So you get a nice clean gate pulse at the output. So yeah, very simple really. And then the strip board layout that I used looks like this. So again, not very many components on the strip board, just a lot of wiring going off out to switches. And so yeah, and when you put it together, it looks like this. You see a close-up here of how I've wired the switches. A double pole, double throw switch, center off, and you can see that the diode is kind of wired diagonally across the contacts. Yeah, that's it really. The circuit diagram and strip board layout, and I'll put the photograph of how I wired the switch as well, all in my Dropbox folder, and the link will be down in the description. But it's just a bog standard Baby 8 style 4017 sequencer, just with switches instead of voltage control pots. Okay, we'll move in closer to the synth, and we'll have a look at what the panel layout looks like, what the switches do, and we'll have a listen to how it works in practice. Quick look at the control panel on the Gatehouse sequencer. Very simple. You've got a clock input and then the gate sequence output. It's an 8-step, so we've got 8 switches. In the outside position, so pointing out of the panel in each direction, the gate is turned on. In the central position, it's turned off, and pointing inwards into the, pointing towards the LEDs if you like, it will reset at that step. I'll I'll demonstrate that. For this demonstration of the functionality, it's just kick drum. Well, I've got a clock going into the gatehouse, and then out of the gatehouse into kick drum, out of the kick drum into the mixer. So you're just going to hear the kick drum thumping away. So you can see from the red LEDs going that I've just simply got all 8 steps of the sequence turned on. So we can turn some off. So there we go. But arguably I could achieve that with a clock divider. So there's nothing particularly clever about that. But we can start and switch in different patterns. We can play around with it, and of course with it set to reset on this, what it will do, it will just play the steps above the switch that's switched to reset. So if I switch this one to reset, it'll just play the 2 above it. So that one's set to reset, so it's just playing the 3 above it. So, fairly straightforward in its functionality, its operation, what it does. I haven't got a master reset. Maybe at some point a master reset might be a nice addition to this, but it's not desperately important because I can just do that. And I'm back to step 1 again. So it's more convenience than the necessity. But I'll think about that. I might end up putting a button on it. But other than that, yeah, there you go. A very simple demonstration of a very simple gate sequencer. But of course, you can send a gate output to other modules. You could send it to a VCA. You could send it to an envelope. You could probably send it to VCF if you really felt inclined. So yeah, I'll set up another patch and we'll have a look at another way in which we can use the output from our Gatehouse gate sequencer. The last patch was a very simple patch, mainly just to demonstrate the functionality of the Gatehouse gate sequencer. This patch is going to demonstrate one example of how you can get a little bit more creative with a gate sequencer. So before I was feeding the gate sequencer direct from the clock module. What I've done now is I'm feeding the Gatehouse module from the clock divider on the invert 4 output. The output from the Gatehouse is triggering an envelope generator, which in turn is controlling the CV on a voltage control filter. Now that filter is being fed with the output from my snare module, which is being triggered directly from the clock module. And then I've also got the kick drum being triggered from the divide 2 output and the hi-hat being triggered from the invert 2 output. So a bit of a kind of a drum pattern, but with filtering on the snare drum, and then the control of that filtering is being done by the gate sequencer. What does it sound like? So as you can see, the lights on the gate sequencer, when the red light is on, at that position, it's triggering the envelope, which is opening up the low pass filter. Of course, we can now start and put some different patterns in there. So if we flick that switch in, well, there you go. Just another quick demonstration of one way in which you can use the output from your gate sequencer to trigger things other than drum modules. It's not just, you know, like a drum machine type module. You can trigger all sorts of things. You could trigger VCAs with it. All sorts of stuff. Just play around, and anything that wants a kind of a gate or a trigger input, then feed it with the output from your gate sequencer. Okay, it's just some kind of very basic demonstrations. No doubt I'll be playing around with it a lot more. If you would like to have a Gatehouse gate sequencer to play around with in your system, then I've shown you the circuit diagram, very simple. I've shown you the strip board layout, again, relatively simple. So go on, have a go, build your own.